Thank you, HNI, for inviting all of us for this wonderful session on the effects of workplace post-COVID and how does the economics play a vital role on this. Thank you to you. My name is Jairam S. Govindaya. I work for Mashreq Bank. I manage the corporate services for Mashreq Bank. Been working in Bangalore for last 25 years. Worked with various organizations like Volvo India, Schneider Electric, Airbus, Danske IT, now at Mashreq. Glad to be part of this panel, moderating this panel. Hand it over to Vijaya to introduce herself.
Hi, this is Vijaya Bharkar, co-founder of Ostraka. We specialize in workspace interiors. We've been working on various projects for various corporates for more than about 15 years and thus far designed and delivered about 24 million square feet of workspaces.
Hi, I'm Sonali Gupta. I work with Cadence Architects. I'm there for the past 4 years and I'm working as an associate partner there now.
Hi, my name is Diwakar Chintala. Run a studio in Bangalore called Studio Chintala. We have an office in San Francisco and Hyderabad as well. Spent over 21 years in the States working for various firms, predominantly Skidmore, Owings and Merrill for 8 years, then another 8 years as design director at Gensler in San Francisco, and then moved to India in 2013 to start Gensler in Bangalore. I was the design director there for 4 years, helped grow it to 100 people, and then in 2016 set up Studio Chintala with the explicit goal of working on a large variety of projects. Workplace happens to be definitely one of our core areas, but we definitely do a whole variety of things, right from furniture design to product design, urban design, landscape, you name it. That's our story.
Thank you, Diwakar. That's a quite comprehensive. We have a star and we have two more rocking stars in the panel. And before I get into this kind of a moderation, I just wanted to bring in few challenges as the corporate real estate professionals and the design professionals they had in the last 2 years. We all had been through this kind of a situation in the last 2 years where COVID was not exactly allowing us to do what we wanted. And from my personal experience, I've seen, I myself have installed around 3 lakh square feet office in my organization, but we had to undergo a lot of challenges, but it doesn't really make us very hurt because we were given an opportunity to learn a lot of stuff during the COVID, and it is basically kind of a new knowledge for us. So having said that, what I wanted to ask Vijaya was, now that we are all done and dusted with COVID, we all think that we are coming back to office, and most of the organizations are coming back in 10%, 20%. Yesterday I read something where HCL and TCS is planning to bring all 100 people back to office. Mm-hmm. So when this is a situation, Vijaya, when everybody is coming back to office and everybody has a different kind of requirement, and today we believe we have an office which is very conventional. So when all these people come back to office, when an admin manager or a facility manager is very uncertain about number of people, and when there is a huge increase of numbers, how do you expect, or what is your advice as a designer? How can this guy can flexibly modulate the office? How can he bring in these techniques in customizing the office based on the number of people who come into the office?
Yeah, so while we, as we are going about designing offices where people do not know what the future of workspace is, one thing is flexibility is a very, very important element in the design. So we are, earlier days it was only the workstations and then you have few collab areas and you have discussion rooms. Now we are not really attaching any kind of a purpose to a place. While you have the work desks, you have other spaces where it can be an extended workspace. Because when people say only 50% of our employees would come back and then there would be a hybrid model coming in, that is only an average. So there might be a day where you get 80% of employees, or there might be a day where you have 40% of employees. So for example, earlier maybe we would just give pedestals. Now people are talking about locker systems for their, putting things there. So, starting from the small aspects of that, people have actually workspace design that way is evolving. So we are giving a lot of spaces where people can come in and work for just 4 hours and go back. That 4 hours would be just to collaborate within their team and go back. So there are places which are conducive to collaboration. And earlier maybe the AV was deployed in only few areas. Now every single corner of the workspace is AV ready. So these are the things, small aspects that we are kind of bringing in by bringing out flexibility. The most important factor is the services, whether the lighting system and the aircon, everything also has to work along with the layouts. So that is something which we are working in, wherein people can have a seamless experience, whether it's a work desk or maybe a collab space or a alternate workspace. So this is something which we are working on.
Said. I would like Diwakar and Sonali to just add on to that. But before that, I would like to tell you that those conventional setups have gone. For example, we have installed an office in Danske last year, wherein an employee does not get a workstation to work from. He doesn't have a designated workstation to work from, but he gets 5 multiple workstations to work from. We call it as a PWOW office, better ways of working. In Agile office, that means when he comes to an office, he has an app, he can choose where he gets. Those days have gone where he gets a workstation and has his family picture, he has his Ganesha picture, all that is done and dusted. He gets a workstation, he goes and works on a HET, height adjustable table, and he's working for 2 hours, he's not happy on that. Then we have given him a small coffee pod, he can work on the coffee pod, then he gets pissed off with that. We have given him a focus pod, he works from the focus pod, and you all know that these days each tribe of 40 people have a designated VC. And if he's still not happy with that focus pod, he can go and work on VC. With all these 4, he's still bored, we have given him an amphitheater. So look at the kind of agility we have brought in. That's where I think designers like you, I'm sure, Diwakar, you want to add something to that?
I would look at it slightly differently. I mean, whether they're bored or it's about choice, I think it's about doing what you need to do at any given point of time. I mean, the whole notion of agile design is, if you want to meet somebody, you shouldn't have to go looking for a room, right? If you want to meet 2 people, you should be able to do it at moment's notice. So how do you do it without having to seek or schedule a room and go look for it? And the whole idea of trying to go through the logistics of finding a space to have a short meeting, impromptu meeting, can kill the whole fun of having. And you say, you know what, I don't want to meet. It's okay, we figured it out. So I think, to me, agility is, yes, definitely about, like you said, your state of mind. I'm bored here, but it's also about being efficient, being as smart as you can about a certain given activity. So the notion that you don't have to seek or search the type of environment that you want to do a certain activity in. So if you want to have a short meeting, if you want to have a very focused 2 hours where you don't want anybody to disturb you, you want to put your head down and just code. If that's what you want to do, you should be able to do that. And how do you do that without having to seek out that space? So how is that available within 20 feet? How is that available at moment's notice? How is that? So how can you be yourself and be the best version of yourself and most productive without having to seek it, without having to go through a long sort of process of finding that space and finding that type of environment, I think is what agility is all about. So yeah, I mean, I think like Vijaya said, flexibility is key. I mean, how do you make spaces that are flexible? How do you make spaces
multifunctional
and
based, right, and evolve over the next, I want to say 6 months, 8 months, 2 years, whatever, we'll see. We're all looking back at COVID and saying, is that really a blip on the radar? Maybe it was, maybe it's not, we'll find out. I don't think anybody has the answer. We can look into the crystal ball and say, yeah, this is where it's going. But I think every time you predict something, I think we were chatting earlier, you don't know where these things are going. So I think definitely, making spaces that can adapt to a future-proofing them, so to speak, but also, combining that with already sort of prevalent ideas of agility, the ideas of collaboration, all of those, I think, definitely are resulting in a new way of looking at workspace.
I think I completely agree with you. Before I go to Sonali, I think it is very important for us to map the algorithm of employees, the employee behavior. And that is very important for any organization. Today, if you look at Netflix, when you log in, it is only a black thing where you register and then start looking at. But after 10 days, it starts understanding your behavior and pattern. And then if you are 4 of you in the family, it shows what you need. And what Mrs. Divakar needs, what the kids need. That's how it becomes very important for a facility manager to work with a designer and start mapping the behavior of the employee and then concisely conceptualize it and then start working on the next design.
Yeah.
Right.
So having said that, Sonali, I have a question for you, which is basically,
I would just like to add on
Please,
to the
please.
previous thing. I think we could probably start looking at not so permanent spaces. We could start looking at, say, like kit of parts or the plugins,
more
where-
modular.
more modular, and yet accommodating people's functions and however they want to adjust. Like in terms of, if you want to schedule a meeting, I can quickly like rearrange and change things around and work. And not when everybody is not 100% present in the office space, then you have that freedom also in terms of space to really look around things and change this, change the orientation, just kind of
Reconfigure
things.
In no
and
time.
Yeah.
it could be easier and it could also be efficient for a workspace.
I think that's the way forward.
Yeah.
Going after the post-COVID, that's the way forward. I'll come back to you. Maybe I'll just go to Divakar again. Divakar, I think I know the kind of experience you have in designing layouts post-COVID, pre-COVID. We don't know what are the other phase of life we encounter going forward.
Right.
My question to you is that in the last 2 years, you've seen that employees are very comfortable. They are in very comfort zone and they are doing moonlighting. They are very happy to work with them. And when you ask them, unfortunately today, even a company like NASSCOM, they say that you cannot mandate employees to come back to office because they're all very comfortable. And when you go to them, they say, how does it matter to you? We are giving you the productivity, the efficiency is there. We are able to give you whatever you've been asking for. So keeping that as a situation, when we don't want to mandate employees, but when we want to bring in employees back to office, how do we inspire them? And what are the creative measures which we need to adopt in a new office post-COVID to ensure that they come back to office?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very valid, relevant, interesting, intriguing question. I've been thinking, and I think a lot of us have been thinking, what makes people want to come together, right? I mean, at the very core, we're social people. I mean, we're social animals, so to speak. We all love to interact. I think it's at some level or the other, we always like to interact with each other. We've experimented, obviously, in our own studio, working on Zoom, for obvious reasons. And, it works relatively well. And then there's Zoom fatigue. And so the fundamental question is, people like to be comfortable. People like to obviously be in their pajamas and do their work. And if they're able to be productive, then you have a very thin argument to say, come back to work. But is productivity the only reason people come to work? That's the question, right? I don't think so. I think it goes to, being social, of course. You'd like to come and talk to people about how their weekend was and what they're doing for fun and so on. So there's this camaraderie about it. There's a sense of community about it. I think those have been talked about. But beyond all that, the onus is a little bit on the organization. Of course, the designers as well, in creating a culture. They say culture is the number one thing that runs an organization. It's not productivity. It's not infrastructure. It's culture. Culture is that intangible thing you can't put your finger on, but it's you experience it, right? You walk into an organization, you start feeling really good. You start feeling hip. You start feeling productive. You start feeling upbeat. It's that culture that you cannot replicate in a house, in the convenience of your little cozy living room. You may be productive, but do you change the world by sitting in your pajamas and being productive? No. You change the world by innovating, creating the next innovation, creating the next generation computer or code or whatever you're working on. So for us to really break ground and change the world, so to speak, if all of us are really trying at some level trying to do that, you have to come together. You have to collaborate. You have to.
Yeah, it's all about collective intelligence.
It is, and
it's not. We can't work in silos.
Absolutely, and so while productivity is a measure of, I'm paying this person X dollars or rupees, and they're giving me X. Wonderful. I think that goes without saying that there's hard case to make for you to come back. But are you really able to change the world by sitting in your living room? I would beg to differ. I think amazing things happen when people come together. I mean,
Yes.
in a way, there's a revolution happening,
Yes.
right? When you come to work, the energy that rubs off each other and the ideas that you gather, and that's what coming back to workplace is. So the onus is on architects and designers and leaders of organizations to create that culture, right?
Absolutely.
And design has a huge role to play in creating culture, but people come back for the culture. Just that idea of you come into an office and you start feeling energetic. You could have a really lousy morning, you come in and you feel really good. And that we can do that, right? The power of design.
That's
So,
a strong word. Before I go to Vijaya, the one word what you use, culture, is very, very important. Other than efficiency, there are a lot of other aspects which will come into picture when employees come back to office. It can be socialization, employee engagement, meeting their own colleagues, talking
Yes.
about their weekend stuff. And then the team dinners and the team lunches have just vanished. The kind of happiness employees thrive when they meet on these particular topics is intangible.
Yes.
So, Vijay, you want to add something to this?
Yeah, so like to add on to what Divakar mentioned, so we create some spaces in offices where, a few of the organization named it as 90-10. That is 90% of your time you're spending at your work desk, but 10 is something where, I have some problem, I am stuck with something. I just come and write on that, in that particular area, I just come and then mention what I'm looking for. So there'll be like a humongous number of ideas coming in. And for someone who's working on something else, I mean, it's always very refreshing to come and see, hey, you know what? Oh, this guy's got something like this. What can I do? And maybe he can give a completely different outlook to the whole problem that he's basically written down. So these are something which you cannot do when you are actually sitting and working from your living room, but certainly when you come to your office, these are beautiful ways of collaboration. Collaboration need not necessarily mean all of us sitting together in an earmarked area, but these are something, which are very non-programmable areas where, they are kind of created out of few pockets of the main passage or something. Where the problem is written on a board and then people are writing their views about that, and it's a beautiful experience.
I mean, unconventional modes.
Yes,
And
yes.
try and meet in a way where you feel very happy to
Yes.
be meeting up. That's a very
Yeah.
good point. Sonali, I think what Vidya said makes a lot of sense. The effectiveness is always there, but the happiness of meeting people in the office is something which is very different. Do you want to add something to this, Sonali?
I think getting back with like-minded people
Yeah.
and that kind of an interaction is very important. The right feedback from right people is very important for you to work and grow as a person and as an organization. So to grow as an organization, we need to work together at some point of time.
Yes.
Very true. Having said that, in the last 25 years, and it's a question to all three of you, is that when an organization will start creating a design, most of the time we have people who have no knowledge of the design try and push themselves onto this decision making thing because they are there as the heads of the organization. Some of them are pushing onto the whole exercise because they want to have their own say. To an extent, that becomes an hindrance for a person like me.
Right.
Even if you do that, they say, okay, can we do this, can't we do this? Because automatically from nowhere the cost factor comes in.
right.
That is the reason in India, even today, please correct me if I'm wrong, there is not a very clear-cut certified governance model for a project manager. When I say governance model, is all about who are the stakeholders, who are the decision makers, and how do you pass through the entire journey of project management from beginning to the end. For example, when we did this 3 lakh square feet project for Danske IT, we had set up a very clear-cut governance model, saying that there is an operational team, which is basically head of facilities, head of IT, head of procurement. We decide everything. And then the second level was the steer co, where it is the head of finance, chief of people, staff, and one guy from Denmark. So that is the steering committee. That means most of the work is done by the working group, gets into the steer co, they both decide. Then the last step goes to the ELT, executive leadership team. So they have no decision to make. They have to say, you guys are done, and we just say okay to it.
Right.
So that's the governance model we have created. That's the reason where we could finish it, because you know it, Divakar, any kind of a support, you always get hindrances. I was talking to one of my friend in an organization where they wanted to replicate the corporate colors in their washroom. Can you imagine this?
Right. See, I mean, the fundamental question, I think, when you're grappling with any design, let alone workplace, is to ask why you're doing it. And I think, you can really get very technical about it. But really the simple logic when we do workplaces, we say, who is productive? Happy employees are productive. Okay. So set aside productivity. Happy employees are collaborative. If you're happy, you talk to others. If you have a lousy day, how can the built environment improve your day, right? You could have had you could have been wading through bad traffic, you've got to work. How can the workplace make you smile, right? Put you at ease. That's all.
Yeah, having said that, see, a lot of the larger corporates, they anyway have, like how I want to touch upon the fact about the culture. So, you have these product companies, you have service companies, and even in the workspace interiors that we are talking about. So, each one's got a different culture. So, all these people are large, and they would have created a lot of large workspaces, and I'm sure there is a team which is taking care feedback, like HR teams and other people, wellness teams and HSE teams, taking feedbacks from their employees, what they like, what they dislike, and I'm sure they would have made. So a lot of people have these guidelines which they say, these are our spaces.
Organization specific.
Yes, these are the size of conference rooms that we need. These are the facilities we need inside these places. And coming to colors, they have, the primary colors and the secondary colors, which are there, which dictate the branding guidelines and the ambience of the place. And some people are very particular about getting biophilia into their spaces, because everyone agrees that, green spaces basically add wellness into the spaces, which earlier people would be very hesitant because it calls for a bit of maintenance, but now that became one of the wellness parameter. So yeah.
So now you want to-
I would just like to add that in terms of wellness, when we think, we don't only think with our brains, we think with our body, we think with our physical surroundings. So in terms of wellness is in a space, we can probably think of incorporating better spatial experiences for a person along with the other elements that we're talking about. So maybe we could talk about volumes, we could talk about good light, a good amount of natural light coming into the
Absolutely.
space, good ventilation, probably bringing out the breakthrough spaces as a part of your working culture altogether. So all of this will really, improve the emotional, the physical, and the mental health of a person, and hence we can probably try and incorporate
Make
these.
the happy employees
Happy
basically.
Create a
Yes.
wholesome atmosphere
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
it is very, very user friendly to every user.
Yeah.
Okay, having said that, very interesting question close to my heart as a corporate leader, which I want to ask you is that conventionally when we started conceptualizing a project or designing a layout or executing a project, we were always worried about, as you rightly said, the size of the meeting room or the size of the workstation or the colors or the murals. They were the important factors. But post-COVID, the focus is more on wellness and automation. And to an extent, the recyclability of the whole stuff what we do. So what is your viewpoint on these three things? Where do you see in the next 5 years the entire project design and the execution is in par with wellness? Because when I started working on the previous project, the first question the super boss asked me, Jairam, this is the amount, 3,000 rupees is per square feet. Tell me out of 3,000 square feet, how much you are investing on wellness? Is it 300 bucks or 400 bucks or 500 bucks? So how does wellness is going to play a vital role? How does the automation, because we are talking about post-COVID, how does this automation is going to take a vital role? And my last question is that we all believe in Mother Earth and we all believe in not screwing up the Mother Earth. How do you plan? What is the recycling mode? Like as you said, even in terms of carpets or trying to scrape the workstation. So how do we work on this? That's one of the question which I wanted to ask you guys. Maybe Sonali, you should take that question first, then I go to Divakar.
Yeah, as I said, the wellness aspect of it, we can incorporate by the. So I think instead of channelizing a particular budget to wellness, we should look at it as a holistic approach.
It can start from his workstation rather than he's going to an earmarked area to play a golf or a snooker. You mean to say that implement it across the floor is what you're trying to do.
Yeah, along with the spaces, the volumes. So we
sense.
could probably incorporate all of those aspects as a part of your workspace.
Awesome. Thanks. You want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sonali pointed out that wellness needs to be understood. I think if you look at wellness from a traditional Indian, Ayurvedic or whatever, it's mind, body, and soul. It's not just, this or that. I think wellness is very comprehensive and you can't put your finger on. So, you can't get very, very metric about wellness. But there is a fundamental need to revisit and start with a clean slate. What is the Indian workplace, right? Is it really a tweaking of the Western workplace, or is there a need for us to fundamentally rebuild it or revisit it or conceptualize it? So that's kind of a very important thing, and it's really the reason that's urgent is because here is a chance for us to kind of revisit the whole thing post-COVID. We have an opportunity to take a deep breath. What I think workplaces have turned out in India is circuses, right? You go to any workplace, they think millennials love color, they love auto rickshaws cut into half, and you sit in that. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if the red and yellow and blue ceilings are. What we're realizing is, yes, employers have tried to replicate. They ask the question, where are you most comfortable? I'm most comfortable in the fireplace next to my, in my house in the living room. Okay, recreate the fireplace. Recreate that little rocking chair. Let them be comfortable. But there is, we've tried that, right? We've all worked from our most comfortable places in our living rooms for 2 years. Is that really what makes an organization? Is that what millennials want? I beg to differ. I think there is more to an organization than just recreating the home. Creating a variety of thematic, fun, happy.
But that also comes out of culture of a corporate, because some corporates believe that you need to have spaces where people can, click selfies and, share the Instagrammable moments or whatever. So, these are some thoughts. And I feel that, Divakar, basically as designers also we evolve. Maybe if I look at my work a few years back, that might have the bright colors. Maybe it's a client compulsion, whatever. But today I'm very, very happy with a monochromatic office with a bit of, green coming in. That may or may not be the culture of the office. And that's where I'm talking about what people talk about, their corporate colors. Some people might find it boring. Some people want it, whatever. So it's all a interpretation overall, I guess.
I agree. I think there is definitely, there's a whole element of, how do you attend to everybody's aesthetic, demands and sensibilities. I think I'm definitely not disputing that. But I think to keep some, I think we can all agree that workplaces need to be peaceful. They can't be controlled the workplace. A lot of organizations are there kind of scratching their heads and saying, people are comfortable in their house. How do we build them back? To ask the question. How do we look at the economics of the workplace post-COVID? So there is a real urgent opportunity and need for designers. I totally agree with you. There is a personal element to it, but there is a chance or opportunity to step back and really take a deep breath and look at what is fundamentally. We went a little overboard, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
I think we can look, step back, and all of us, not just designers.
Because I've got some clients coming back and saying that, hey, you know what, I think we need to be a little more creative here. What they meant, the creative is the half autos and, the trucks put up there.
I was talking to Arna from Space Matrix. India is such a country wherein we have such a creative designers. And I was telling her that we could even create an office at 1200 rupees, but we can also create an office at 4,000 rupees. It is what are the elements we bring in. So that actually makes me to ask you a question, Vijaya, which is very, very close to all of us. When it comes to sustainability, creating an office, when it comes to an automation factor.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm mixing everything,
Yeah.
but this is something which is going to be very, very relevant in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Everybody is talking about sustainability factor, automation, and all.
But I all see sustainability as a word at times, I'm not too happy the way it's used. I mean, people may not really understand the essence of it, and people are just talking about using some green products here and there, and it's
Walls.
it is just like looking at it from a surface. But if you really go by what you said, use your daylight harvesting. I mean, be a little logical in the way you approach design itself. Of course, you have your other people, the lead consultants and wellness consultants, helping you with the actual documentation bit of it. But having said that, it all starts with you. For example, he was talking about products, let's say products in India. For example, there is the carbon footprint can be controlled by that. So straight away you're making the things very sustainable. So these are the aspects what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I was talking to this lady. He said the entire Mashrik Bank office in Dubai, he ordered everybody to remove the printers out of the building. That means one way of removing the printers is that you bring down the carbon print in the office. Second is that imagine the kind of money you save. Where we have to create in the next 5 years. These are the basic modules an organization should follow when they're doing a new office, so that it becomes very.
Yeah, while doing their new offices, of course, they're going from their old offices. So how you repurpose them? So how much of it are you using? The extent of the material that you are repurposing it, because obviously the function might change, but you have something you have already existing. So how you're going to use them? So these are the things which if designers plug into their design process, I'm sure I think whatever they create would be sustainable.
I think that is a wonderful thought process what you have brought in, which makes, I think today designers and the corporate real estate heads, when they start talking about design aspects of it, it is very difficult, Divakar. I know that, to bring in all the elements which can satisfy from A to Z of an organization.
Right.
But what is important for us is keeping the post-COVID regulations and also the kind of practices wherein employees really want to come back to office, but they say that I come back to office if I'm very comfortable to work from office.
Right.
And if we need to make that happen, it is very important for us to cover all these elements and ensure that these things are propagated, also manifested, and being communicated to employees.
Right.
Because most of the time what we do is that when we design or conceptualize a project, we fail to involve stakeholders.
Yep.
Who are our important stakeholders? Our employees. But tell me, how many organizations go to each employees? We ran a workshop for 1,800 people before we started the project. So I think it is important for us to take their interest into consideration and start working from there. Tomorrow, what happens in the organization is that people always say that the corporate real estate is a cost center. We are the profit center. That means it is important to involve the business units, whether it is positive or negative, take the inputs and try and inculcate. Does it make sense, Divakar?
Absolutely. I think, there's no doubt any leader of any organization will agree that their most important asset is the
Employee.
And, I think, but, somewhere in between, I think we lose the plot because we're starting to put too many things into the picture. I think it's good to remind ourselves that at the end of the day, again, I go back, I always start with the basics when I'm doing a project. I say, okay, all this is fine. You got a company, goals, you got your values, your cultures, but at the end of the day, for anything to succeed, we need happy employees. So let's talk to them and ask them what makes them happy. So there's no question that I think it's important to remind ourselves. The reason all these becomes pertinent, I think I'm starting to realize, is because we have had years of love, right? We've had the whole world is revisiting not just workplace, every aspect. People are thinking about lives, right? Their goals, family structures.
They're thinking of moving away from cities,
right. I mean,
because that worked for them.
Right. And in the US, we have the Great Resignation. We are seeing people, couples are saying we don't both have to work. One of you can take care of the kids, and husbands are willing to stay at home and be stay-home dads while moms are working, vice versa. So there's a whole shift in
Yeah,
the
paradigm
way-
shift.
Yeah, lifestyle, ideologies, philosophies, spirituality, you name it. And workplace, of course, has to be also self-examining and introspecting. Uh, my 2 cents on sustainability is, like Vijaya said, I think sustainability is a little bit of a misunderstood term. Sustainability is not putting plants on a wall, right? I mean, you need to take a deep look at what sustainability. We've gone through 20 years of greenwashing, green products. Okay, a space that is well designed is inherently sustainable,
Yes.
right? Because it is probably relevant longer. You don't have to break it up in 5 years. So that's inherently sustainable. If it's not got a green wall, but it's still designed well, very thoughtfully, it's sustainable because it's going to be around for 10 years as opposed to 5
Absolutely.
years. Okay, you don't have to go crazy about putting green. I mean, it's good too, but it's not. That's not the only thing about sustainability, right? Sustainability, just good old design principles are sustainable. You don't
Yes.
have to go bend over back.
Optimizing every particular service, whether it's
Right,
the lights or the aircon
Exactly,
or whatever.
passive.
Designing it well.
Yeah,
That's what it
like I
is.
said, some of the most important resources are available. Natural light.
Yeah.
There's studies upon studies that show that if some employees are working in a naturally lit space, they're 30%, 15%, 17% more productive.
Yeah.
There you go. There's your sustainability. You don't have to put plants all over
The
wall.
basic stuff.
Get your basics right.
Yeah.
So I think we are almost at the end of our discussion. I think my last question is one question to three of you. You have to just give me a rating on 1 on 10. It's just a rating so that we can wind up this discussion. So my question, I have not understood till today, even after 25 years. So when you are trying to compare yourself in India with respect to the designing and implementation and manifesting of a new post-COVID office, in comparison to Western areas, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are we, Divakar?
Assuming the West is at 10, which I would disagree. But I don't know. I mean, I think maybe I'm trying to understand the question. So if you're saying that if the West has gotten it right, where are we in relation to
Not
that?
necessarily that they've gotten right. Maybe we are moving towards the right direction. Benchmarking 10 is the best stuff to happen across the globe. Where are we on that particular front?
I mean, I will answer your question not just with respect to COVID, because that's a little hard to do, but with respect to generally, have we gotten our workplace design right? On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say we're at 3.75
Wow.
or 7.5263, whatever. I'm just kidding. But I think there's a really fundamental requirement, and this is something I've been working on, and I think we continue to work, is to clean the slate, forget, if you look at the evolution, sorry, convoluted answer, but if you look at the evolution of the workplace, right, there was the babus, right, back then. You would go and there would be desks and you would sit, there would be files, and that's the workplace, the government office, or you had private offices like the big corporations like Godrej and Tata's, where, that's Indian workplace. I don't know if that was also kind of fundamentally designed from a ground up, but that's evolving. And then all of a sudden, the IT revolution, the early 90s and the 2000s, we have what we have. I think we really need to look at it, and that's why I gave it 3.75, because maybe we will end up with something very close to what we
But here I want to jump in, Divakar. Workspace, we can't take it in isolation. Basically, there is already a glass building which you are inheriting. Instead, India is a beautiful country. Bangalore is a beautiful place. Why are we enclosing it with glass facades on the south and then
Absolutely.
spending on the aircon? Not required.
Yeah, no, I think
So
that-
basically, it's all interconnected. You get a good building. For example, there are a lot of architects who created courtyards. You have, if you haven't visited, Titan building in Bangalore, beautifully made. That also is a workspace. It's got courtyards, no aircon. Whenever it is required to kind of get the control the temperature, they have system in place. It's so beautiful
Yeah,
to
no,
work
I
in
think
that space.
Very valid. I think we've
Yeah.
inherited the glass box, right?
Yeah.
You're essentially building an oven and pumping air conditioning.
Exactly.
In a country that's short on resources. So,
Yeah.
there's a fundamental revisit to the base building as well. Overhangs, shading devices.
Yeah.
Everybody loves floor to ceiling glazing, nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But do you still need to build glass boxes like they build
Yeah.
in the West, where resources are power is not as expensive, air conditioning, I mean, they don't have to.
And the weather conditions are extreme, then it's a valid.
Leverage the natural resources.
Exactly.
And try and
Yeah,
build
so
an
I-
office.
Yeah.
And
in
I
line
think
with
you can't, I mean, I totally agree with Vijay. You can't look at workplace without critiquing the envelope you're working within,
Yeah.
right? So, as architects, we need to revisit the fundamental idea of what is an office building, I think. And
Totally with
Yeah.
you, Divakar.
Also,
Totally with you.
I just
Sonali.
want to add to it. When we worked from home for a couple of months, we realized that we could survive in much lesser, like in fewer things around us. We do not need like a 10 by 10 cabin to, have that hierarchy or a comfortable space. We are comfortable in a very small area, but it's done well. We have good light, as we mentioned previously. So even if so we can optimize things in a much better way, and hence we should start looking at those aspects also. We don't necessarily have to confine ourselves with definite sizes that a room would need, and like a cabin should be. We should start looking at optimizing spaces, and probably then we can
So
incorporate
make
like
use
a
of
better,
the each area, each inch square feet of the real estate and try
in
and
a
bring
good
in
way.
a
Yes,
creative.
but you should create more healthy environment to work in than having bigger spaces and it's still monotonous.
I think bang on. You're on the
So-
right spot.
Mhm.
Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
Thank you.
This is a very, as you rightly said, intriguing panel discussion. And I'm sure going forward, we would be witnessing a lot of new dynamic ways of project management. Hope and we will be able to do a justice. Thank you once again. Thank you to HNI for this wonderful session. And thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.